There's one overriding pattern that's actually something that I think is not addressed nearly enough, and that's what I'm trying to explain to people. I call it the I've decided pattern. And what I mean by that is like when you first get married, everything is happy and there's the warm glow of your new relationship. So when your spouse says, I want to do blank, you're probably likely to go along with it. But over the years, what starts happening is when you have these unilateral decisions where one person just keeps deciding things, the other party starts feeling like, well, wait a minute, they don't ask my opinion. They don't ask my say. I don't feel like I'm involved in this. And before you know it, the two people, instead of becoming like one entity, a married couple, they start behaving like two individuals, and they really start watching out for their own best interests rather than the couple.
Hello and welcome
to the High Noon Couples podcast,
where we empower blessed couples
to deepen their love, fostering mutual pleasure, connection, and joy.
So let's dive in.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the High Noon Couples podcast. Today we are having an exciting guest actually, who is Joe Dillon from, I believe, originally New York, but located now in
California,
right?
San Diego, California. Yep. Coast to
right,
coast.
Yeah. From one coast to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would love to invite you to introduce yourself a little bit and what you're doing.
All right, great. Well, thanks for having me. As you mentioned, I'm Joe Dillon, and for about the past 30 years, I've been a negotiation professional. The past really 20 years have spent in my own private practice doing divorce mediation here in the U.S. And we practice in 6 different states here in the U.S. Our company is Equitable Mediation. But today I have decided to take that knowledge that I've learned over the past 20 to 30 years, and I'm writing a book. So I'm in the process of writing a book called The Power Up Method. And it's really meant to take the lessons from mediation of how I see couples, quite frankly, fail in communicating and try to give them a structured approach to marital communication, resolving marital conflict. Because really, when you think about it, every marriage is a negotiation. You're married, I'm married, and you're constantly saying like, well, where are we going to go to dinner? What movie are we going to see? What color are we going to paint the room? So everything, it may seem low stakes, but everything's a negotiation. And so that's my goal with this book, is to teach people how to have those conversations and do it better.
Wow, yeah, that sounds really interesting. I think this is a topic that comes up over and over again, communication. And as you said, it's not just about to communicate right, but then also to negotiate, as you said. I actually, funny fact, in my school, like in my high school, I have learned to become a mediator. I could have become professional with that or like get a certification, but I was like, but I've learned a few small tweaks there, but that's already like about 15 years ago. So it's been a while. So from my first question would be, what are from your experience as a divorce mediator, what are some of the small patterns that damage a marriage in the long term before they even consider wanting to divorce or separate?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's one overriding pattern that's actually something that I think is not addressed nearly enough. And that's what I'm trying to explain to people. I call it the I've decided pattern. And what I mean by that is like when you first get married, everything is happy and there's the warm glow of your new relationship. So when your spouse says, I want to do blank, you're probably likely to go along with it. But over the years, what starts happening is when you have these unilateral decisions where one person just keeps deciding things, the other party starts feeling like, well, wait a minute, they don't ask my opinion. They don't ask my say. I don't feel like I'm involved in this. And before you know it, the two people, instead of becoming like one entity, a married couple, they start behaving like two individuals, and they really start watching out for their own best interests rather than the couple. And that's the pattern we see. And it takes a long time to unfold because it's not something people are typically looking for, right? They're looking for the yelling, the screaming, maybe infidelity or money or spending styles. But it really boils down to, at the heart of all of it, underneath it all, Daria, is the little bits and pieces that start to add up over time. And that's when the resentment builds. That's when the communication breaks down. And typically a lot of the clients that we see, they're usually married about 15, 20, 25 years. They're like longer term marriages. And that pattern has just finally built up to the point where one party has said, look, I've just had enough of this. We're just not on the same page. And that's the pattern I see all the time, over and over.
Yeah, that's interesting you're saying that, because when you say said that one person is making the decision and the other one at the beginning, agrees, and was like, you
Sure.
want to like be liked by the other person,
Yeah.
or you don't mind so much, but then over the years, over the time, it becomes, oh yeah, it actually bothers me, and I don't want to, because I see that in my relationship with my husband. That we started with, my husband is an amazing interior designer. Like, he's not an interior designer, he's a physiotherapist, but he's really good in interior designing. Like, our apartment looks really amazing because of him.
Right.
But for me, it was really difficult to, exactly, it was really difficult to share my thoughts on how to do this and that, because I knew, he's good at it anyways. But I felt I was not part of that decision, or I was not part of the process, the creation process.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that happens a lot. And when couples make that I've decided pattern, the thing that's also missing from that is the why, the explanation. Now, like, for example, I might say to you, hey, we're going to go for Italian food tonight. And you might just be like, well, okay, I like Italian food. And if Joe wants to go for that, sure, no big deal. But if I said to you, I really want to go for Italian food because today would have been my Italian grandmother's 100th birthday, and she died 5 years ago, and it would really mean a lot to me if we went for Italian. That's a different conversation. You would be, wow, oh gosh, yeah, let's definitely go. You would feel included in the reason. We would feel closer, like, oh wow, he shared this really intimate, somewhat painful thing with me, and that drew me closer to him. And then over dinner, we could talk about my grandmother, and we would have a much different time versus, I want to go for Italian food. You'd be like, well, okay, well, sure, all right. It's not the same thing, even though, like, when you think about it, it's the same outcome. We went to the same restaurant, but it was the reason that I gave you that really got the buy-in, and also made that little connection in the relationship about the reason why. Now I understand more the reason behind the reason. And that's something I try and emphasize to couples, that you're not a child anymore. When we were little kids, right? You go to your mom, I want this, give me a cookie, blah, 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 right? And your mom would be like, no. You're like, why not? And they'd say, because no. And you just didn't understand. There was no reason from them. There was no reason from you. And as adults, it's important for us to give those reasons, make that connection with our partner, our spouse. And then that's also what adds to that good feeling. And that adds to that connection that we've made this decision together, or we're in it together.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. This giving the reason, not just like being dragged along and being included. And that creates also so much connection as well.
Yeah. And that's what we're looking for in a relationship. Sure.
Exactly.
You want connection. You don't want to be two independent strangers who just happen to share a house. I could get a roommate and do that, like back in university. It's just, that's not what I'm looking for at this point in my life.
Yeah, totally. So many couple dearly love each other, but still like do that.
Mm-hmm.
So they really love each other. They really adore each other, but avoid certain conversations. Either, is either for me was at the beginning was like really doing certain house chores, or I think I'm trying to remember something that my husband, for my husband, it was like for me being too much on my phone and then avoiding this topic or running away from that. So why do you think, from your experience as a divorce mediator, we avoid this kind of conversations?
That's perfect segue for what I'm trying to teach people with this book. It's a lot of times, now, as you imagine, my line of work, I read all kinds of books, take all kinds of classes. And even though my background actually is in finance, contract law, like, I'm more of a tactician. I'm not a therapist. I'm not in that headspace, but I do read therapy books. I do read negotiation books. And in the therapy book specifically, which is what a lot of us think, right? If we have a problem in our marriage, we go seek counseling, a counselor, a therapist. A lot of those are taught to focus on past, whether it's wounds or past conversations or past patterns, and in turn create a space for open communication, which is fine. What's missing in that is the resolution piece. And people really, what winds up happening is they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. So they say something vague like, why are you always on your phone all the time or whatever it is? Like, in other words, they're just trying to get you as the other person to fix it for them. And a lot of those times there's a couple of parts in here. The first is these conversations just happen over and over and over. That's really what it is. It's usually one or two conversations we as married couples have over and over. It's not new arguments. It's a different, version of the same argument.
Yeah.
Because it never got resolved. We never were taught the tools how to fix it. And when we try to put tactical negotiation and marriage together, people are like, well, my marriage isn't a negotiation. It's not a business to be managed. It's like, yes, it is. Because if it isn't, you're going to keep having the same fights about money or kids or vacations or whatever it is. One is having those conversations. People are afraid because they just know it's going to result in nothing again. So that's one part. The other thing that I think happens a lot is that we have a concept that I use called prepare the connection. How many times have you had a conversation kind of just sprung on you, like surprise, like you're just having a nice day and you're at the breakfast table and, you're eating your yogurt and you're reading your phone, whatever it is. And your spouse comes in and says, oh my God, we have to do blah, blah, blah. And you're like, whoa, right? You weren't ready for that. So of course you're going to be like, no, we're not. And then that's going to create an argument, right? You're laughing because it happened to you. Probably it happened to me this morning, actually. And so you try to be polite. You want to listen to your spouse, but they're not understanding that you're not awake yet, or you're reading this article that you find really interesting and they just broke that up. So also having a space that says, I'd like to talk to you, and then being honest with what it is I'm going to talk about and how long it's going to take. I know one thing that people are famous for, and I don't know if this translates, but it's a common thing. It's like, hey, do you have a minute? Somebody says that to you, right? In your brain, right? You're laughing because
it's not going to be a minute.
You're like, all right. Yeah, I have 60 seconds, go. And they'll be like, why are you timing me? It's like, because you asked if I have a minute. And yes, I have 1 minute because I happen to have a client in 5 minutes that I need to prepare for. Well, then I'll talk to you when you're too busy. It's like, well, no, you asked me if I had a minute. Why is this creating an argument? You see, that happens a lot. So rather have people say, listen, I'd like to talk to you about something. I need about a half hour of your time. It's about dividing up our household chores. I have some ideas I'd like to share with you. So please let me know when you have some time. So you've kind of empowered the other person now when they're ready to have the conversation. You're ready, right? You've got the conversation. It's in your head. If you spring that and go, hey, listen, Daria, you never clean up around here. I want you to start doing the wash and doing the shopping. And you'd be like, hold on a second. Where did this come from? Versus, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this. Do you think we could find a half hour on Saturday morning to sit down at the table and talk about all the household chores we have to do next week so that we could share in them? That's a different approach, right? That's a different conversation where you now know on Saturday, you're not coming in ready for a fight. You're coming in to say, this is what we're talking about. This is how much time we've allocated for it. And I know what the result would be. We want to have a list of what I do and you do, right? So that, I think, is getting people to understand that they can't spring conversations on their spouse, and also to give them a clear path forward as to what they want the resolution to be. That's the missing piece, because then you just have, I'm always doing the wash. I'm always doing the cooking. I'm always doing, and that happens in my house. I'm the person who cooks. But I, even in my own self as a professional, I still say to my wife, well, how come you don't cook more? Why don't you cook? And she's like, well, I don't like to cook and I don't know how to cook. Versus if I said, hey, Cheryl, that's my wife, on Wednesday, could you go into the kitchen at 6 o'clock and make us a salad and make us a piece of chicken that's in the refrigerator, and I'll put it in the pan for 10 minutes. That's a different conversation, right? That's got a result and an action, and then she'd feel good and I'd feel good. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for an outcome. an outcome and a framework by which to sit down and not just spring it on somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is also that we a lot of times just want to get out of the frustration and then not think about what actually it happens to the other person, how it lands there.
Right.
And because if I want to share frustration or share something that is going on, I want to have some kind of a better result from it. It doesn't make sense to just jump on them and just like blurb it out. I really did have that problem and doing that a lot. And sometimes I just 2 days ago, I was like in the evening, my husband was really tired, and suddenly I felt like there was something on my mind for a few days now, and I really had to share it.
Right.
And just, I'm sorry, my love, I just have to blub it out.
Right.
You don't have to say anything. I just say it.
Sure.
And then later on, I was like, oh, notice, okay, so I'm sorry that I said it in this way. I should have actually asked you if you are available right now. Maybe I should have waited until tomorrow you are rested and not so tired anymore. But I was happy that I did say it at that time, and it was good at the end. But I know that I could have waited longer and maybe ask first. So
yeah, that's important. And when you ask, if the person says no, you need to be prepared to accept the no and then redirect the conversation back to wherever it was. A lot of times, and you probably said this, I've said it, we've all said it. Hey, can I talk to you about something? No, not right now. Oh. And then so now you're disappointed. Oh. Really? You don't have a minute? It's just a minute. Now, the person gave you the answer. They said, no, I'm not ready to talk to you, but you pushed again. And now you've engaged an angry person, which is not how you want a conversation to start. Right? You've engaged an upset, distracted, anxious, angry person. And it's up to you as the person doing the asking to redirect the conversation and say, no problem. I just want to talk about vacation. Let's carve out time on Saturday and leave it. So that at least the conversation moved slightly forward and the person knows what it is you're talking about, because this happens a lot in our house where someone will say, can I talk to you for a minute? Oh, no, not right now. And they'll be like, all right, forget about it. And now you as the spouse, right? If say my wife said that to me, I'd be like, okay, what's wrong? Oh, no, forget about it. Don't worry about it. You're busy. But now I'm upset. Now I'm worried. Now I'm engaged. And again, that conversation is not going to go well. And it's not a fault of anyone's, because you care about the other person. You want to listen to them. You want to be there for them. But sometimes when you're in the middle of doing something, if you're doing a household project or you're studying something and reading something, that's probably not the best time. And so you, as the person who's asking, also needs to gracefully put that person back on track. No, go back to folding the wash. I will talk to you on Saturday. It's just about our vacation. No big deal, right? So you give them a gentle push back in the direction that they were in. And that helps a lot, because it doesn't leave you in that, well, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Are you sure? And now both of you are worried. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I guess this is also answering my next question I would have had is the difference between like a normal argument and then a pattern that creates resentment. Because like sometimes we do just have arguments, and it's normal in any kind of a relationship. But then when it becomes a pattern where we create resentment, as you said, where we just say, oh, forget it, or oh, you never listen to me when I want to share something, or when we ask, do you have time, and then hear no and push back. And that is, at least how I perceived what you shared, becomes an unhealthy pattern. Or do you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Certainly. And that's an example of people turning away from each other versus towards each other. So I'll talk about it in terms of negotiation. When you talk about negotiations, let's think about any negotiation. It could be something as simple as the restaurant example, or it could be, do we move from New York to California? It could be something major, or you move from Germany to Spain. It's just something big. And when we talk about those things, what often happens is someone comes in with their position. They already know what it is they want. And then they're trying to sell the other person. So they keep talking and they keep pressing. Spain would be beautiful. It would be great. Imagine we could learn the language. We could live there. We could travel. Like they've got it all in their head because this is what they want. Now, the other person is like, well, I'm born and raised in Germany. I want to live in Germany. My family's in Germany. I speak German. I don't speak Spanish. Like they have a lot of reasons not. So you can see kind of where the conflict comes because there's no real, no overlap here unless somebody gives in. Now, in that example, the two sides are just kind of selling each other. It's, study after study has shown when people are in a negotiation and they keep talking, the person who's listening to them perceives that as them being manipulated, as being sold, as being tricked. And so your brain kicks in and says, oh no, I'm not falling for this. I'm not going to be tricked by this. I'm going to push back in the complete opposite direction. That's a defense mechanism we have. So that's burned into our DNA. And so now what starts happening is it becomes battle versus if someone came to you and said, I was thinking, I really would like to move to Spain. I've always been fascinated by Spanish culture ever since I was a little kid. I think some of my ancestors are from Spain. And then followed it up with, I know this would be really difficult because you don't speak Spanish. Your entire family is in Germany. I know you probably don't have any reason to want to move to Spain, but would you be willing to have a conversation with me about it? You see, so I've kind of now acknowledged that I'm making a big ask here, and I know that you're not on board, and I gave you all the reasons why you're not on board. What that now did is it did two things. One, in this case, you, Daria, would say, okay, Joe really gets me here. Like he knows why I don't want to move to Spain. So that takes away your argument, which is one, that's a little trick. Just, you've got nothing to yell at me about because I know what you were going to say because I really had to think about it, though. It required some planning. And two, now I didn't make it sort of like a done deal. It's not a battle. It's a, could we consider it? You now have room in that conversation. It makes it a decision, a problem we're trying to solve together. And if the answer is yes or the answer is no, both of us, regardless of which direction that conversation went, both of us are going to feel better about the outcome because we felt heard, we felt validated, we felt like the other person understood our position as to why we did or did not want to move to Spain. And at the end of the day, we might say, you know what? Maybe today is not the day, but, someday in the future, we certainly will. And I bring that up because my wife and I, we lived in Chicago for 5 years before we moved to California. And I happen to be a city person. She's a beach person, like noise and cities and culture. And she's more like quiet and beach and palm trees and things like that. And we've had this conversation where we said, yeah, I understand that you really like the city. So here's what we'll do in order to compromise. And I felt like, hey, she gets me, right? She understands that I don't like the beach. I know that sounds funny. I don't really care about warm weather. It's beautiful here, but it's kind of boring. It's the same weather all the time. There's no change of seasons. It's really kind of quiet. It's like, okay, but that's how you do it, right? You kind of counter the person's objections before they even have a chance to say them. And then you make it a problem that you want to solve together. Like how can we talk about this? What could I say to you that you would move to Spain? Like what could I offer you? You see, and so it's not just me coming in and, telling you exactly what I want and expecting you to bend to my will.
Yeah. Yeah. As you said at the beginning, how to just instead of I just want to move to Spain or move to somewhere else, like to the city. But really acknowledging and already through some conversations beforehand you had, knowing how the other person feels and what objections might come.
Yeah.
And acknowledge them also in the beginning statement.
Right.
Helps
exactly.
already, as you said, being heard and was like, oh yeah, you get me. And it's not just wanting to be like the other person wants to manipulate me to move somewhere. They want to be, not I where I don't want to be. And so that makes it real. I really see that it does make really a difference. And I know my husband and I will have a conversation about something soon where I know, okay, we will need to negotiate. So that was actually
Right.
really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes time because you think about it. So I often joke about myself. So I'm an only child. I have no brothers or sisters. And when I grew up, I got everything I wanted, right? My parents were like, sure, the answer is always yes. And as an adult, you learn that the answer is not always yes. And you have to learn that there is compromise and sometimes you will get your way, sometimes you won't. So it's very hard as humans when we want something for us to put ourselves in the other person's position and say, okay, let's think about why they would not want to do this or not want this or not want me to do this. And at first, it seems counterintuitive where individuals might say, why am I going to give them ammunition? Why am I going to tell them exactly the reasons why they shouldn't let me go away with my friends? But by doing that, you'd be surprised. Like I said, it takes the air out of the balloon. It just kind of deflates that argument. And now you can spend less time arguing about why you should or shouldn't and more time talking about how do we make this happen? How can we move? How can we pick a restaurant we both like, or how can I go away on a long weekend with my friends? That's where you really want to spend your time, not countering each other's reasons why you should or shouldn't do something.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you shared that you're working right now on the book Power Up Method.
Yep.
So can you explain a little bit because it is an acronym, right?
Yep.
And yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So there's 7 steps. Each of the letters is a step. And if you go to that website, powerupmethod.com, you'll see the 7 steps. And right now we're in the middle of doing some research. So if anybody goes to that website and can enter their email address to kind of get our newsletters, and we'll also send you a little quiz. We're trying to figure out, my philosophy is I'm trying to understand people's negotiation styles. And part of it is really, Dari, is to give people a structured conversation. And I know it's very funny because there are absolutely differences in the way people communicate. And stereotypically, they fall along male and female patterns. They certainly do. Men and women communicate in different ways. And again, I think a lot of it goes back to our biology and our DNA. And a lot of the books that I've read have been very soft. They don't result in an outcome. They aren't very process oriented. They don't structured. So mine is a bit more structured. And I think specifically men will appreciate it because it will give them a way to talk to their spouses and their partners in a way that doesn't come across as like they're trying to manage them, but rather, look, let's not let this conversation take 4 hours when it should really take 4 minutes. And so each of those steps moves you through the conversation, because a lot of times, like you talked about just before, people tend to jump into the conversation. They jump in the middle and they forget some of the foundational stuff, like what we call preparing the connection, where do you have a minute, as opposed to, hey, I told you to go to the store. How come you didn't get groceries? We're having another couple over on Saturday and you were supposed to get, right? It's like, not like, hey, can I talk to you a minute? Because we're having that other couple over on Saturday and we need to get some groceries. Do you have a minute to talk about that, right? You've already just put that person on the defensive. So as you move through that, what also this tries to teach you, so there's some steps in the middle where you get to what we call reward with values. That's the R in power. And there's another kind of philosophy where you're taking this to, at first, it really does come across as awkward. I can see why people at first, when they do this at first, they're going to be thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. But I can tell you as a negotiation professional for 30 years, this is how I operate and it works every time. Like if you've got somebody willing, if you're going to get somebody who's just no, that of course, that's hopefully not your spouse, but it's meant for, a couple that's interested in communicating. So when we talk about this methodology, first we say, when we say weigh their perspective. That's when I know you don't want to move to, Spain. I know your family's in Germany. That's weighing their perspective. Then it's the E is explain your why, but I've always been fascinated with the culture, X, Y, and Z. I would love to move there. That's usually where, if somebody even gets to that, that's where they stop. There's another magic letter, and that's the letter R, and it's reward with value. So now I say to you, Daria, listen, I know your family's in Germany. I know you don't want to move there. I really want to move to Spain. I've been obsessed with it since I was a kid. Now here comes the R. If you agree to move to Spain with me, I will fly your family out 4 times a year to stay with us for a week. I will also hire you a private tutor so you can learn Spanish so you don't feel like you're just, walking around the streets. Maybe I'm fluent in Spanish, right? And so that you'll know the language. And on top of that, you can pick where we go on holiday for the next 5 years. Just right. So I'm now not only explaining why I know you don't want to do it, explaining why I want to do it, but also really offering you something significant. It's not just, you'll love it. It's really thinking about the person, right? I know you're going to miss your family. I'm going to try and solve that problem. I want to show you how invested I am in moving to Spain. I'm going to bring your family over, fly them first class 4 times a year. You might not want your family there 4 times a year, but if it's like really important, and we'll get that, dog that you've always wanted. So you see what you're doing is you're now adding that next level on top of it, that the person really is thinking, wow, they understand my objections. They really want to do this. And they're really offering me a really good deal to make this happen. Let me think about it, right? And then that's where the U comes, where we say use patience. That's where now I just dropped all of this on you. And that's a lot to ask and a lot for you to think about. I now need to go away and let you process it. Because if you're like me, I'm one of those people who you give me a bunch of choices. And I mean, it could be as easy as, do you want coffee or tea? And I'm going to need a minute to think about that. I'm a processor, right? I'm a deep thinker. That's true. That's what I do professionally all day. So if I drop this on Daria, she's got to say, well, okay. All right, Joe, thank you. That's a really generous offer. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a week and really, think about this. And then let's, get together again next Saturday and sit at the table and let's talk about it. And I'd be very happy about that. And so that's where the P in up is proceed accordingly. So I now have to say, great, no problem. And I need to leave you alone for a week now. I can't say on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, so what do you think? What do you think? Any thoughts about Spain? Now Daria is like, I told you last week, that I would talk to you on Saturday. Please respect me. That's where, again, the follow-through, the conversations go off. So you can kind of see that middle part there is really going that extra mile, not only asking, explaining why their objections are, but also giving them something right on top of it, that sweetener that says, I understand this is a big deal. And to show you how much I understand, here's something big that I want to offer you. And so that's how that kind of works in a nutshell. And so the book will give you exercises and kind of case studies and stories about, fictitious couples and what they do right versus wrong. And, I really want to get people to start thinking that way, because I really feel like if in my profession helping people divorce, if people had really felt heard and validated, and then the other person went above and beyond and offered me these things, what starts happening? You look at the person, you're like, okay. And I say this lovingly about my wife. I'm like, and I say this to her half kidding and half seriously. I look at her and I say, you are a crazy person, right? Like, I don't understand a word coming out of your mouth right now. I love you. I want to make you happy, but I have no idea what you're talking about right now. And we laugh about it because we have this, we both communicate like this for the most part. I said, all right, just tell me what it is that you want. What am I going to get out of it? And we can just move on, right? And so we've kind of brought our own little shorthand into it, where we know, like, I want to move here. Great. If we're going to move there, then I want this. Great. Done. Right. We can get to it a lot faster because in the beginning, it's going to take time for people to learn. But at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is that after a while, you start, making all those offers and those sweeteners and also really hearing your spouse's objections and understanding them in advance. What does that do to your relationship? You look at your spouse and go, wow, they really know me. And wow, that's really generous. They offered to fly my family to Spain 4 times a year. I know that, we do okay financially, but we don't own a private jet. And, that's gonna take, and plus my husband is going to have my family here for 4 weeks a year. Wow. He really must want this, and he really must care about me to make that kind of offer. So you see that connection happened, and that's what builds the marriages up over time. So there's the secret to it all. Now you just got to practice it. That's the hard part.
Yes, like really taking in the practice and continue to do that, not just like, giving up, and it's like doing it over and over again. But yeah, I've never heard really this concept of giving, like like
Yeah.
it's something sweet, this
Right.
concept, and make it more, in German you would say tasteable, like it did it taste better, or like
Right.
the offer. And as well,
Yeah.
like afterwards letting the time and letting it sit and let the other person process. I'm usually the
Yep.
one who makes decisions very quick, and
Yep.
it's very easy. My husband is the same. He's like more kind of the one who needs to think and process, and then comes
Yeah.
back later. And I'm the
Yeah.
impatient one usually. Is like, okay, what's now? What's going on?
Exactly. Yeah, you're a verbal processor. We're mental processors. Cheryl is like you. She's a verbal processor. What do you think? Should we go here or I don't know. This movie is out, but there's also this play I want to see. Do you think we should go to dinner first? And me, I'm just like, what? What happened? I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, Saturday night, we want to make some plans. Okay. Could you have started with that? Like, could we start? Hey, what do you think? Joe, what do you think? Do you want to go out on Saturday night? We didn't even have that. We were already at picking out what we were doing. And that to you, right, Daria, is probably very frustrating, just like it is to Cheryl. She's like, what's so hard about this? I'm like, well, I don't know. I was fixing my computer and all the parts are all over my desk, and I'm bent over the desk with a screwdriver and a flashlight trying to remove the hard drive. And you just walked in and started saying all these things to me. And I'm like, well, but I'm in the middle of trying to fix my computer. Like, what did you expect me to do here? I was not ready for this. And that's where a lot of frustration comes in, where you get the mismatch in styles. That is a typical male, female. Guys tend to think, women tend to be more verbal, top of mind. And that does create that frustration where, he never listens to me. It's like, no, I will love to listen to you, but I need to listen to you when I'm ready to, when I'm able to listen to you. And one thing that's very funny this will make you laugh, and you might even smile because this happens in your house, is that we will be going to bed and the lights are out and we've said goodnight and given the goodnight kiss, and my head is on the pillow and I'm about to drift off, and somewhere in the dark comes for, do you think I should change the website homepage graphics? And you're like, my God, what? Like you are just like, it is 11 o'clock at night here. I am half asleep. The lights are out. We've said good night. Usually, I don't know what, in any language, that usually means the day is over, right? I don't know about you guys, right? But, usually good night is okay, well, And so I'm like, what is happening? Because it's on Cheryl's mind. She's processing it right now. That's not even a case of like different processing. That's just picking your time, And people think, well, it's like, well, it's important to me. It should be important to you. Not at 11 o'clock at night when the lights are out, right? So we bring up those kinds of examples as exaggerations because we want people to laugh. And as you are, and I am, and Cheryl and I look at each other, and we don't get mad. We just laugh. And we had one of these conversations this weekend where it was about replacing a couch in our living room because a couch, it's old and it's uncomfortable and it's stained and the dog gets up on it. And we keep talking about it because she keeps saying to me, do you think we should replace the couch? And I keep saying yes. And then it comes up again. And I'm going, why are we having this conversation? So then I started doing the opposite. No, why should we replace the couch? The dog is just going to get on the new couch. They're going to just wreck that one anyway. This one's uncomfortable. We'll get some pillows or something. And she's like, but I thought you wanted to replace the couch. And then I was like, yes, that was like 3 months ago. Why are we still talking about this? So those frustrations even happen with folks like us, where because there was no resolution. So finally on Saturday, I said, okay, this week, meaning this week, literally, I want you to call the upholstery company to find out how much it would cost to get new cushions made for the couch, because the couch is in decent shape. And then I also want you to go shopping and look in some stores and find 3 couches that you would like to buy if you were going to replace this one, and then bring them back to me next weekend and we'll sit down and look at them. So now we at least have an action, right? We at least can solve the couch problem. We either replace it entirely or we fix it and we, spend some money to fix it up, right? So yeah, so that's all part of it, is just getting to that resolution place where there is an actionable item that can happen. Both of you can measure it and say, yes, we either keep the couch and fix it or buy a new couch, right? So that's for listeners, that's what you're really looking for. When you're having a conversation, you don't want to just talk. You want an outcome. You want a resolution. And so think about what that is, what you want, and how it is you're going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's because I'm a woman. I know that sometimes just talking really helps, like, to get things out of my mind. And then, through, as you said, like as me as a woman, or as this type of woman, like, wanted to process through talking, it sometimes really helps just to talk. But then there are topics that need resolution, that need an outcome, and where just talking about it is not enough.
Right.
And
yeah,
that really, like, how you explain it showed me on, okay, they're just like, mentioning it over and over and over again doesn't create a resolution. It doesn't create an outcome. It's just like,
right.
It just hangs over our head for
Of
the rest
course.
of the time until it is we start the action plan, as you said.
Exactly.
And that's really interesting on this, creating this
And that's
action plan, because a few things that you've mentioned before, I have I've known through other books and other people that have, like, for example, the safe conversation method, where you ask beforehand and then also practicing on how you listen to the person and mirroring back. But that is one side. This is one part of the whole thing, like being heard and being understood, and in this way to connect. But then also just moving further from the conversation and then creating something actionable.
right. Exactly. Yeah. And what you're talking about, those are in conversation techniques. So what I've found that's been missing in all of these books is they give you the techniques to use once you're in the conversation, but they don't give you the framework on how to have it in an organized way. And what you were talking about is that the mirroring concept is something that's used by hostage negotiators. So if there's a crime and, somebody's got a bunch of people in a bank, and the hostage negotiator's job is to build rapport and build a relationship with that person. And the way they do that is by saying, hey, I'm just like you. Yeah, that makes perfect sense that you would be angry about losing your job. Your boss sounds like a real jerk. Now the person in the bank, right, who has these people, is like, hey, this guy gets me. This girl gets me, right? Yeah, my boss is a jerk. Tell me about him. He sounds like a real idiot. And now you're creating that connection, that you're doing that. Running underneath is, hopefully your marriage isn't a hostage negotiation. But, it's part of it is that having the structure to have the conversation and then knowing what to do within it. Those are 2 different things. And that's been my experience. The books address what to do within the conversation, but they don't understand how to move through it, get it to resolve, get it to go well. Because yes, active listening, mirroring back, repeating back, because that's also a big thing. There's a chapter I have in the book that's the working kind of title right now is when your yes and their yes don't mean yes. And point of it is, I think, well, great, Daria, we're going out for Italian food at 7:00 on Saturday. And Daria's like, great, we're going out for Thai food at 6:00 on Friday. And we both thought we're going to dinner. Yes, we are. We agreed that we're going out for dinner, but we didn't get the details right. And that became the problem. And that's what disconnected us and created an argument. Being able to say, all right, Daria, just so I'm clear, we're going to the Italian restaurant at 7:00 on Saturday, right? And you going, well, no, I thought we were going out for Thai food on Friday at 6. And me saying, when did we talk about that? And then you coming back and forth, they say, I don't remember that. It's like, okay, or we could renegotiate and go for the Italian food, right? So as long as we make sure that we have clarity and understanding, then that also helps. As you were talking about, the verbal processing is not going to continue to happen. And because that issue has gotten resolved. And my wife, Cheryl, is exactly the same way as you. And part of the challenge, and this is probably an insight into you because it's an insight into her. One thing that's frustrating for her and for people who are verbal processors is my impression as a nonverbal processor, as a deep thinker, as I'd call myself, is that the verbal processor, because they're talking, is expecting the other party, in this case, the deep thinker, to solve the problem for them. And whether they are consciously aware of it, the reason the verbal person is talking over and over is because they don't have the answer. But the verbal processor doesn't know that the deep thinker is completely unaware that it's their job to solve the problem because that person just started talking. So the processor, like me, is like, now we're just staring at you, right? We're like, oh God, how do I get out of this? What is happening? The football match is on in 5 minutes. I want to sit down. I want to get my beer. I want to just turn on the television and watch this thing, the World Cup. And I don't know what to do here. And then the verbal processor gets mad because it's like, you're not listening. You're not helping. So the lesson here is the verbal processor needs to learn that it's their job to explain, since they're the one talking, what they want from the other person. Hey, I have a problem I need your help in solving. I've been thinking about it nonstop for a week. Do you have 20 minutes to talk to me about it? Here's what I'm looking to right? So that lead in. And this literally happened yesterday. Now, granted, I am a professional, so my wife didn't do what she was supposed to do to make this go well, but I knew what was happening. So I knew she's been talking about her website, right? So she has her own business. She's been talking about her website and about the graphics and the words and the things on her website. And she's been talking about it for a long time. And so I was just eating my lunch. I was just enjoying my food, and I was sitting there and she just kind of launched in. And I'm thinking to myself, I just want to eat my chicken tikka masala in peace. And just I had my little Indian food bowl and I'm sitting at the table and I'm like, well, okay, you know what? I could flip through my phone or I could listen to her. And I've got my mouth full anyway, so it's not like I'll be talking. So I can listen. And she went on for about 45 minutes. Now, in this case, at the end of it, I didn't really say much, but at the end of it, she said, thank you. She's like, I've just been wanting to get that stuff out of my head and I just didn't know who to talk to. So thanks for listening. Now, okay, that would have been better if that came in the front, but at least it came, right? That's the important point, is that you don't want to feel as the deep thinker that you just got attacked or you just got dumped on. And then the person walks out of the room and you're like, well, what do I do with all this information, right? Like, what am I supposed to do now? And then am I supposed to take an action? Now, guess what? The deep thinker, whether you know it or not, is now worried because we think we're quiet. Now I'm going, well, does she want me to change her website? Because I know how to do that. Does she want me to help her rewrite the website copy? I don't know. Should I start picking out, stock photography for her online because she said she doesn't like the pictures? Is there an action here, right? And you just don't know. And so the verbal processor is out because they just got it all out of their face and they're happy. And the deep thinker is like, what do I do here? And now you go quietly away and you do something. And then what happens? And you're going to laugh because I'm sure this happens in your house. Your husband, me, we go and we come back and we say, hey, look, I wrote some new copy for you. And the verbal processor goes, I didn't ask you to do that. And now they're mad at you. You're like, wait a minute. But why did you tell me all that stuff? I just wanted you to listen. Well, I didn't know that. I'm an action taker. I'm a fixer. What did you expect me to do when you gave me all that, right? So that's what I'm trying to get couples to understand is acknowledge who you are and who you're married to and be okay with it, because the chances are really good that two deep thinkers are not married to each other and two verbal processors are not married to each other. One and the other. And that's a lot of what creates the consternation and the conflict because of the styles, the communication styles. It's not that they don't love each other and that they want to help, but we're just not clear on what it is you want. What do you want us to do here? How long is this going to take? Because I have a football match to watch. And, how do I get out of this, right? And that's really what, when you think about entering any conversation, set the expectations, set the time, summarize up front what you want to talk about. And verbal processors, that's really hard for them because their mind is going a mile a minute and they're already talking to themselves right before they walked in the room. And it's just now that the words are coming out, right? They've been in their head the whole time. Now they're just using the mouth part of their face to make the verbal stuff go on, right? And then you're just sitting there with your paper, your phone, or your television or whatever, and someone walks in. So that's the message I have for people, is that recognize who you are, recognize who your partner or your spouse is, and cut them some slack, because we're all different. And if you really want to improve communication, it really does mean that you have to acknowledge that I am me, you are you, we are different, but there is a structured way we can work together. And that's what we're trying to do with Power Up. So hopefully I can put myself out of business as a divorce mediator, but it's a lofty goal, Daria, but I can at least help some people avoid showing up in my office. So that if I can do that, that's a success by me. So there you go.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of things you've shared now. So with the talk, like the one verbal, and the thinker. It's like so many conversations I had with my husband. It's like, yes, that happened between us.
Yeah.
And
It's probably better he wasn't here today, because it'd be like a therapy session where you guys would probably look at him like, see, but you can let him watch this and tell him I said hello and have him give me a call if he has any questions. And, I'm here for him. We're a brotherhood. Sounds like he and I are of the same cloth, as we say here in America. But yeah, I think it's important. And it's important you laugh about it. That's, hearing you laugh has been great, because you have to look at each other and you have to say, this is ridiculous. This is what we're arguing about. Or it's just, I find it so funny when Cheryl and I try to communicate and she's like, what's so funny? I'm like, think about it. This is hilarious. It's literally impossible for you and I to be able to communicate effectively, but we're still trying. And that's all that matters, right? And we're laughing at ourselves about it because we know that it's not going to go well. We know it's going to take some time, but we're going to keep at it. And eventually we'll wind up with either a new couch or one that's been reupholstered. So, I'll keep you posted and let you know what happens with that.
nice. Yeah, it's really true. Like, to keep laughing about stupid situations, about things that kind of could get better or have been gone wrong, and just having, not taking everything so super personal, and just enjoy the process and getting
exactly.
better.
Yeah, because that's the goal, right? If you want to stay married, you have to decide to stay married. It doesn't
Yeah.
just happen. You have to, it's like a garden. You have to care for it. You have to water it. You have to feed it. You have to weed it. You have to tend to it. You don't just plant something in the yard and then it just magically makes flowers and fruits and vegetables. And, if it was that easy, it would be great. And that's part of, like you said, is the journey and the work that goes into it, and knowing that you've got somebody else who is also in the same, in your relationship with you, willing to do that work, willing to make those deposits into what I call the marriage bank, and really just say, yeah, we're in this together and we're not going to get it right. And it's not going to be a straight line. The conversations sometimes go like this, but at the end of the day, I know I love you. You love me. We're going to work on this. We're going to work through this together. And ultimately, let's solve these problems, right? Let's get these answers. Let's resolve these issues so that we can feel like a team. We can feel connected and we can, quite frankly, stay married.
Yeah, totally. Just one last thing is, what is a weekly conversation or practice you would recommend a couple to who wants to stay connected and, having these issues and maybe are not so humorous and laughing about their communication?
Right.
Yeah. What would you recommend?
Yeah, it takes a lot. And there's one question that I would say people could ask each of them. And you, of course, carve out a time, carve out how long this is going to last so it doesn't spiral into the rest of the day. And you're going to agree in advance that the conversation is contained, meaning at the end of it, there's no hurt feelings. There's no, it's going to ruin the rest of our day. And then it's for each person, ask the other one. And this is a hard question to ask because it's hard to, as the person asking it, to hear the answers. Can you, so this is me asking the question, say to Cheryl, was there a time or something this past week where I did not show up for you the way you needed me to? And it's you're asking because you're genuinely curious. And when you ask it as in that way, it's basically saying to your spouse, and the idea of this conversation is to say, how can I get better for you? How can you get better for me? And again, using the framework, right, to have the other person not just say, well, you never cooked dinner, blah, 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 blah. Have them say, this is where I felt you didn't show up. This is why it's important to me. And, here's why it means a lot to me. And so that the other person doesn't just feel attacked. So I'll use I promise I'm not hungry, but I just use food as an example. It's an easy one, right? But it might be something like, well, I always cook dinner. I asked you to make dinner on Wednesday and you didn't. And I wound up cooking again. And that really made me mad because I cook 6 days a week and I just asked you to cook 1 day a week. And, rather than just kind of keep yelling at them in this example, I'd say it would mean a lot to me because I would like one evening where I could work a little late and I could not feel so pressured to end my day, run downstairs, prepare the meal, feed the dog, set the table and all that stuff. I would just like one day where I could know that something was being taken care of for me. And whatever you decide to make, and then this is the sweetener. And I've said this to Cheryl, is like, whatever you make, I will eat. If it's you open up a can of something and you pour it into a pot, it's like that. If you would like to bring in food from a restaurant, a frozen meal, whatever it is, I was like, because she always pushes back and she always says, well, I don't know how to cook. And I'm like, yeah, and that is a true statement. She didn't, grow up in a household where I did, where I had an Italian grandmother who cooked and my mom cooked and my uncle cooked. So I've been cooking since I was a kid. But I've always said, that's what it would mean a lot to me. It would feel like you were taking care of me in that one regard. And so, she still panics when I ask her to do that, like I did last night. And she was well, how long do I cook the fish or what do I need to do? Or I said, the instructions are all in the box. You just pull it out of the freezer, just read what it says, just do what it says on the box. And so she did that and it worked out fine. And I came downstairs because I had a late meeting here in the US. It ended at 6:45, it's about 7:00 p.m. And I came downstairs, dinner was ready, and it was nice to come downstairs, have that late day. We were able to sit down at the table at leisurely and enjoy our dinner rather than me now coming downstairs at 7:00, starting to cook, eating dinner at 8:00. We get up very early here because our day starts early because of the time zone difference here in the US. And so we're going to bed at like 9:00. So if I'm starting to cook dinner at 8 p.m., I'm not getting to bed at 9, right? So again, it's having those conversations, Daria, where you ask the other person and you're genuinely asking, and it's not a laundry list of things. It's one thing, like, what's one thing that happened this week where I could have shown up better for you? And then, and how could I do that? Because naturally, if we knew how to do it, we would have. But sometimes, like in your example, it might just be like, hey, I really just needed you to listen. I didn't need you to say anything. I didn't need you to fix the problem. Next time I come to you and I'm just talking, just sit down, ask me what's wrong. Just listen to me. You don't have to say anything. And when it's over, I'll be happy. So that in that case, me or your husband could know, like, okay, that's what she wanted. And then when it happens again and it goes that way, well, they listened to me. That's good. Okay. They understood me. Good. This worked. Right. So that's the question I would have people ask. Tough one, but be prepared for some true, honest answers. That's all I can say about that.
I mean, I think it creates a lot of connection because, as you said, you're curious and asking, okay, what have I done where you feel maybe it didn't feel so good about what I have done? And then it creates an opportunity to be honest, and it creates an opportunity where I can be accountable for what I have done, and maybe not in the way that my husband in this way had needed me. I think like for us, it became quite easy to do that. But for someone who is not used to that, I can imagine it's not that easy to start with that.
Yeah, that's an advanced technique. I mean, you want to get some conversations right first, but you don't want to go to like the professional league. You want to start playing in the schoolyard, in the amateur league first. And that's part of just having simple conversations. Like with money is like a very hard conversation, or the decision to have children, or should we move or change jobs, or, let's just start with, do we want to go out for dinner on Friday? We just use the structure of conversations to get some small wins. And then from there, move into some more advanced topics, because people they argue about the big stuff, but they also argue about the small stuff. So when you start showing people that you can actually solve problems using a structured methodology and proper communication tools, they're more likely to say, okay, it worked on this little thing, so let me see if I can make it now work on this big thing. And that's where, we try to say to folks, you don't have to eat the whole thing at once, right? You just take a bite, right? You just, try one of the steps in Power Up. Right? Prepare the connection. And to me is that's the key. Like that is, if you don't have somebody's attention, you've already lost. You're like scrolling. You talked about your phone before, right? Say you were scrolling through your phone and your husband walked in and said, hey, I think we should, buy a new car. You'd be like, okay, yeah, that's good, right? And then he goes off and buys a new car and comes home with it. And you're like, what the hell is this? And you're like, well, I asked you the other night. You remember you were on your phone and it was after dinner. And you're like, I don't remember that. Now you've got an argument and a new car, right? To deal with. Engaging someone, I'd say of everything we've talked about today, that to me is the most important thing. Preparing the person for the connection. If you don't have them, you've already lost. Game's over.
Yeah.
Like conversation's going to go right off the tracks. So absolutely.
In the drain.
Exactly. Start with the basics. It doesn't have to be fancy. I've been doing this 30 years. I'm a highly trained and highly skilled professional, and even I screw it up sometimes. It's not to say abandon all ye who enter here, all hope, right? It's to say, look, we're humans. We're complex creatures. Situations change. We might be in a good mood, a bad mood, a hard day at work, our relative called with some bad news, whatever it is. And I think it's just, if we remember all of that and the underlying message is we're all trying. So as long as we keep trying, that's all that really matters.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. We're human. We're trying just to do our best. And sometimes, we're dysregulated and something just like our spouse says something and it triggers us and exploding. And I was like, oh, oops.
Yep. Sorry about that.
And repairing that again.
Yeah. So you build that strong foundation. So the next time they say that, you're like, they're just in a mood. That's okay. You just move on, right? Because you have the solid relationship that's really foundational. It's the people where they don't have that foundation. Every little thing starts to bother them. And then that's when they wind up in my office.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That was such a great conversation.
A lot of good tidbits in there, right? Just for you and for your listeners, that's it. You don't take the whole thing. Just try one of the things we've talked about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a few things and then listening again and then just taking what really hits. And I think what really stayed for me was this, because that is something I've really learned already and understood. Of course, I still do mistakes, but what you said is the most important, really, to seek the connection before starting a big conversation. And so this is something that I really created for myself already. But what really came new for me now was to have an outcome of a conversation, not just like having an offering. Like, for example, if you want to go somewhere for holidays, and I know, for example, my husband really wants to go fishing. Fishing. So knowing, okay, we go there, but we're going to need something else for me as well, and creating that as having this sweet offer, and also giving the time to think about it, especially for him because he's a processor, and also giving myself the time to process, not just like making quick decisions, but also, okay, maybe certain decisions need some more time, and maybe it is easier for me to just create quicker decisions, but taking the time and then maybe coming back to the conversation or just talk about it with him and asking me to support me and making a decision. And
yeah. And it's okay to ask that, right? It's okay. I need your help. People like to help, right? We are wired to help. If you saw your neighbor fell down and dropped all their groceries, you wouldn't just go, and go inside unless you're a
Absolutely.
terrible person, right? You would run over and say, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Do you need any help?" And you even before they said anything, you'd start putting the groceries in the bag and you'd grab their elbow. And the same goes in a relationship. It's like, I have a problem and I need your help solving it. And then being willing to listen to it. So that's it. It's just not admitting that you don't always have the answers, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's okay also to share that. It's like, I don't know how to help we with that. And let's figure out that together. And that's okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, same here. You got a lot of homework to do now. So my apologies to your husband because he's gonna be looking at you like, well, what happened today?
I'm gonna tell him just to watch the episode. I was like, then he knows.
Yeah, and take notes. Listen, take notes, and I'd love it if I'll send it to you. But for you, if you can push it out even to your listeners, we have this quiz. I'd love to gather some data on people. I'm trying to get some numbers behind my research and what styles people use. So I'll send that to you when we hang up, and then if you can fill that out, your husband can fill it out. It's a simple little mini quiz online, and it'd be great. Just to keep getting more information to see how people definitely what they think their styles are versus what their styles actually are. So
right, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate coming on and sharing your wisdom as a divorce mediator, but also, as you said before, you take yourself out of business by creating this book. That would be great.
That'd be good. And hey, it's a lofty goal, right? Fingers crossed. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much and take care.
All right. Bye.